Hey guys, Rominating Reaper here. It's the middle of June. You wouldn't be able to tell though from this rain. Yeah, perfect weather to go to the cinema. And so I'm about to head in to see How to Train Your Dragon. Yes, I'm actually watching a live action remake. Look, this one was filmed in Northern Ireland, so kind of have an obligation to see this. Plus, it's How to Train Your Dragon. Love the original film, so I'm hoping this will be just as good. But the only way to find out in is to head in, get some snacks, and get seated for How to Train Your Dragon. So I've got my popcorn here and a Sprite, ready to watch one of my favourite animated films get the live action treatment. So, How to Train Your Dragon. I am back from seeing it. This is directed by Dean DeBlois, who co-directed the original animated film with Chris Sanders. This is, of course, DeBlois' live-action directing debut, apparently because he learned they were remaking it in live action and so stepped in himself to stop anyone else potentially ruining that story he so lovingly brought to life in animation. As much as we didn't need a live-action remake, I do respect that approach. I also respect that this was filmed in Northern Ireland and so created a lot of jobs for the local film industry, and so very much is supporting it for that, and also because the original is one of my favourite animated films anyway, so I was curious to see how they would fare in translating it to live action. But does this live action retelling come close to delivering any of the magic of the original animation? Let's find out. So much like the original, the film is set on the island of Berk, where the people are at a seemingly never-ending war with the dragons that terrorize their villages, with their efforts led by the island's chief, fearsome Viking warrior Stoic the Vast. Stoic's scrawny son Hiccup, meanwhile, dreams of being a great dragon killer, and so one night, during one of the usual dragon raids, ends up shooting down a rare and dangerous species known as the Night Fury. However, when he discovers that it's alive, rather than killing it himself, ends up befriending it and naming it Toothless. A friendship that defies all of Burke's traditions and shakes everything that Hiccup and his people know about dragons right to its very core. So, it's certainly reasonable to approach this with a healthy level of skepticism. I did myself, admittedly, because again, the burning question here is, did we really need a remake of How to Train Your Dragon? Because the original animated film is pretty much near perfect. So you do sort of have to ask yourself, what would a live action telling of the story add that, wasn't already done wonderfully in the original animation? And honestly, color me surprised here because I actually thought this was a brilliantly done remake. I think this is definitely going to be one that will satisfy most audiences. It's going to be a big crowd pleaser. Obviously, yes, this is a very, very faithful telling of the original film. It sticks very, very closely to the original, almost to a fault, in that, this is, basically the same story, it's shot for shot, line for line. And so there's no real surprises to be found here. And it does sort of beg the question, well, if it's just telling the same story in basically the same way, what's the point? But I think what really makes it sing is, the fact that we have plenty of the same creatives that worked on the original. So, it's delivered with a certain level of love and reverence for the original film that you probably wouldn't get from most other live action remakes. And to its credit, it also does add new elements to the story. There's certainly subtle changes, but they do work in sort of beefing up, like, the lore of Burke, and like some characterizations and dynamics get a little bit added to them as well. And I think it does work in translating this story into live action. I think what really makes this experience just so like cinematic is just the sheer level of dedication that the production team, like the production designers, costume designers, visual effects artists, have put in to faithfully bring the world to life in live action. Obviously, the production design, transforms the landscapes of Northern Ireland into the island of Berk with, the houses very much faithfully brought over from the animation. A lot of elements from the animation, like the costume design and indeed the CGI for the dragons, are faithfully brought to life here as well. I especially credit for how they brought the dragons to life because it is really, really stellar work. The highlight, of course, obviously being Toothless. You know, they very much kept his design the exact same, and his green eyes are every bit as soulful as they are in the original animation. And to be honest, there are points here that I honestly just grinned from ear to ear, like just like a complete idiot, because it's just so lovingly done. The moments of Hiccup and Toothless bonding, I just could not help but smile, man. And there are just so many breathtaking sequences here, brought to life with great cinematography from the Bill Pope, and of course John Powell's score, which is every bit as just majestic as it was in the original film. And it means that, there are some genuinely breathtaking sequences that are just, immensely cinematic and just really made for the big screen. Like particularly the test drive sequence. Oh my god, that scene, seeing that brought to life in live action was just such a rush. I just had the biggest, dumbest smile on my face. It was just so well done. I think another aspect that is done very well is the casting. It's pretty spot on. I think Mason Thames, who you'll recognize from The Black Phone, does a very good job as Hiccup, sort of selling his, awkwardness and sort of hopeless, like, optimism, but also his, increasing, like, courage as he bonds and learns from Toothless. He does a very good job here. Nico Parker as Astrid also did a good job here. Her character is notably one that they added a bit more to, and I think she did do a good job with Astrid's drive for greatness and her overall confidence. Nick Frost as Gobber the Belch is very funny. He has some great witty line deliveries. I also very much enjoyed the comedy element that came from, of course, the other dragon killers in training. Perhaps most notably, Julian Dennison, aka Ricky Baker, as Fishlegs. It was also kind of funny hearing his natural New Zealand accent slip through every once in a while. Those moments did make me chuckle a bit. Admittedly, that's not from the film itself, but it was something else I did enjoy. But on the subject of spot on casting, Gerard Butler as Stoic. Of course, reprising that role from the original animation, he is great. He's every bit as, fearsome and threatening, but also like funny and warm as he was in the original. You can tell Butler just loves this character, and indeed he loved filming in Northern Ireland. And so that does just make me smile a bit. And of course, the climax, featuring the epic battle with the Red Death, is every bit as thrilling and emotionally resonant as you'd hope it to be. And honestly, by the end of this, I just left with a big smile on my face. I just had a absolute blast. Overall, How to Train Your Dragon overcomes the "did we need this" questions by delivering a breathtakingly cinematic and just, loving and sincere retelling of the original animation. Out of 10, How to Train Your Dragon gets a 9. So, let me know down in the comments, have you seen How to Train Your Dragon? Or what did you think of it? What did you make of it in comparison to the original? And will you be seeing the sequel? Let me know all that down in the comments. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you're new. And don't forget to turn on post notifications so you don't miss an upload.